Right guys, how are you all today? Ryan here for the London Craftsman, and today's video is all about lower alcove units. Right, so this isn't a massive comprehensive video. I'm just giving you a few tips and techniques. For example, trims, heights and widths of things that you need to do when it comes to your lower alcove units. Whether the unit should be flush, forward, and if so, are you going to use a side panel or a trim? Should the trims be flush with the doors? Should they be stepped back? I'm just going to give you a few examples to be able to help you on your way of making your own. Right. So let's get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about flush units. So if we've got a chimney breast, we want that lower alcove unit to be flush with the chimney breast, or at least very slightly stepped back. If it is going to be flush, then we do want to step that trim back from the front corner of the chimney. We never want to make the trim or the unit absolutely flush, because when it comes to putting that trim in, the likelihood that that corner of the chimney breast is going to be absolutely level is going to be zilch. So we're just going to step that back to give ourselves a nicer detail. So let's start with a big wonky drawing of the front view, okay? All right, so this is our opening. So we've got chimney, we've got a wall, excuse the spelling, and then we've got floor, and we've got the ceiling. Right, so we're going to have our skirting board there and there, aren't we? And obviously we're going to have a skirting that runs along, but I'm not going to draw that line in. So first of all, we're going to go with our overall height. So what I do is most of my units sort of like 700 high, give or take. So there's our carcass. We want the sides to run through. That's what I do most of the time. And our top and our bottom to run in between our sides. Also have a division like so. Doesn't really matter, but you're probably going to need a division if it spans anything over sort of 800, give or take. Remember, we are putting a ledge or a top within this, so it's going to beef up this carcass, which is going to stop the sag. So it's going to be double thickness. So if you don't have a division, it's not the end of the world, but I'd probably suggest not going over 800 to a meter to be able to, to stop that sag. If you are having doors on the front, which most likely you are, and it does have sag, you're going to notice that sag between, from the gaps of the doors up to the ledge. So possibly worth just putting a division in. So skirtings most of the time are 20 odd mil. I'm going to put 20. Let's just imagine we've got a wall-to-wall of a meter, 1000. I'm going to possibly leave, because this is flush, I'm going to leave about 30 mil in between the carcass. So 30 and 30. So that means that we've got a 10 mil gap between our sides and our skirting, which is plenty. You've got 20 mil in total for movement. Remember, skirtings can taper in at the back, which sometimes they do, 50% of the time they do. Alcoves are generally not straight. So you need to take into account that. So I basically allow at least 10 mil in either side between the carcass and the skirting, and both sides. From the carcass to the floor, I leave at least 50 mil. That is if you're going for a contemporary looking alcove unit where the doors are basically flush with the bottom of the carcass, no skirting detail. And we're going to go for roughly an overall of 700 overall height. So there we go, we're going to draw our ledge in now. Like so. Floor to ceiling, floor to top of ledge is 700 overall. Okay, so from this we can go, okay, well, our carcass size, carcass is going to be a meter minus 60, so that is going to be 940 wide by, and we've got 700, we're going to go for an 18 mil top, possibly 50 at the bottom, so that's 68 off of 70, 700. That's going to be 632. So basically our carcass size is going to be 940 by 632. But anyway, talking about trims, you can do trims two ways. Right, so let's draw on this side the top view. Okay, so let's just imagine we've got our wall, our back wall, chimney, like so, okay? Chimney. So we're going to draw this carcass in. Remember, this is top view. We're going to make this carcass flush, at least. So we've got to take into account that we're going to have a backing and we've got skirting at the back. Let's draw that box in like so. So we're going to need to allow 20 mil plus our 6 mil backing. So 26. And we need to allow doors to be on the front. So if you're going for just standard 18 mil doors and a little gap, I always leave about 22. So imagine this chimney breast is 400 deep. We need to allow at least 400 minus 26 minus 22 in order for this door, these set of doors, to be flush with the chimney. But now we need to talk about trims. How do we finish these trims? For this example, we're going to put a trim flush with the carcass, like that, okay? This is a simpler way. All right, so if we're going to go for that, we can always make these doors flush with the chimney, but again, it's not a great detail because we have a little gap here and here. We can always step this back. So let's just imagine our wall is very slightly bigger like that because I drew it a bit rubbish. Let's just imagine we want the door to be at least 10 mil step back from the front of the chimney. So we've got 400 minus 10 minus 22 minus 26. 26. So that is 58 equals 58. So the total carcass, that would be, this carcass would be inside depth, would be 300 and 342. So that carcass depth, inside depth, from the inside of the door to the inside of the back will be 342, taking into account that we've got a 20 mil gap where the unit's going to butt up against the existing skirting board and a 6 mil backing. And we're allowing 22 mil for the door and the gap. And also the door wants to be stepped back from the corner of the chimney, 10 mil. So with all those taken into account, which is 58 off of 400, is the carcass inside usable depth is 342. Right, so that is one way of doing trims where your trims are flush with the carcass. Remember, if you're doing it this way, your ledge or your top would then possibly be stepped forward of your doors at least 5 mil, either making them flush with the doors. So your ledge would be sort of, front of it would be flush, or ever so slightly step forward by about 5 mil, just to allow for, if there's any movement in the door, you don't line them up absolutely spot on. You don't notice that difference. So again, ledge would be flush with the doors or very slightly forward. So you'd have that look from the front, your trims would be stepped back of the doors. Okay, so there's another way as well. So let's rub out all of this and talk about if your trims are flush with the doors. So let's draw that in a bit bigger from last time. There's our little alcove and our chimney. So we need to take into account, again, this is the same design. We're just going to make this carcass step back from the chimney. But we need to draw the sides in here just so I can show you what's happening. So there are sides. Imagine that's these two sides shown in top view, remember? We need to put these trims on the front. So we're going to take into account that we're going to have a trim directly on the front of the carcass, flush with the inside of the sides, okay? Like so. I always do roughly 23 to 25 mil trims. I mean, I generally use about 25 mil MDF for this if I'm going to do it. And then I just have a very slight step forward, or I just run my trims through the thicknesser if they're ply and just bring them down to about 23 mil thick. If you've got birch ply generally and you've got 25 mil birch ply, that actually comes in at 23 mil thick, so it's perfect. And the reason for that is because your doors are going to go on the front, like so, of your carcass, and they're going to be inset. And inset means they are inside your carcass frames rather than over your carcass frames. So there we go, that's representing your door gaps. 3, 3, 3. Okay, so we've got our trims sitting on the front of the carcass, so our trim is in line. Then from that point we come in 3 mil, and again, in line. Then we come in 3 mil, and that's the start of our door. So you can work out your overall carcass size. So we went for 900, I don't know. So basically you're taking off your gaps, plus your side, plus your 3 mil. Gap, plus your side, plus your 3 mil, and another 3 mil. And then with the remaining, this is off the overalls, and then you just divide it by 2 to get your door widths. So on this, these are inset now, aren't they? Because they're within the frame. Again, you really want your trim to be at about 23-ish, something like that, to allow you to have a little bit of play. Just remember the depth of the chimney, okay? So you still want your ledge to be slightly forward of that by 5 mil, I would. You know, I never really make my ledge flush with the doors if I can help it, because it's very hard to line up the doors and make them look absolutely perfect. So by stepping the ledge forward or the top forward of your doors, the face of your doors, it gets over that problem. But just be careful you don't make all of this too big, because you want your ledge to be stepped back from the chimney line by at least 10 mil, okay? Take into account that. All right, so that is where you probably need to either just use mitre bond or something like that to glue these trims on at the end. If you've got a lamello, then you can, or a biscuit joint, so you can biscuit them on to the size of your carcass. But I find just mitre bond is absolutely fine to glue these trims on. Remember, you're going to need to inset hinges for these doors because they're going to have a big kick. So this is your carcass. You are no longer having a door in line, remember this is top view, in line with your carcass. They're actually going to be stepped in now. Inset, that is, okay? Full inset. All right, so anything else I need to know? I'll let you know if you are going to do this. So going back to this drawing, with these trims, they're going to be stopping in line with the bottom of your carcasses. Whichever way you want to do them. If they're going to be on the front, again, I'd still make the trims in line with the bottom of the carcass and the bottom of the door. But basically, the bottom of the carcass is also the bottom of the door and bottom of your trims. And the only thing you'll see is that skirting detail running up from skirting to skirting. That's the way I do a nice contemporary alcove, lower alcove unit. Anything else that we need to know? Not really. Right, so remember this is flush, and we're going over 2 trims. Either the trim is going to be flush with the doors or flush with your carcass. Flush with your doors actually looks a bit better. It's a bit more work, but ultimately it just gives you a nicer job. If you don't worry, you're not worried about time, if you're not worried about the way they look as such, then just go for the step back trims. They still look okay. I do still quite a few trims like that. Customers, you know, sometimes pick and choose when I show them pictures and they're happy with the step back trims. Okay, so let's get rid of all this and talk about what about if your carcasses aren't flush with the chimney breast anymore, they're sticking out of the chimney breast. Okay, so again, front view shouldn't really change, but let's draw it in because I could just show you a few details of the ledge. Okay, so again, let's draw, this is front view and we're drawing the carcass in, our side. This is what it's like to be a teacher in a school, you know, where you had to draw straight lines. Doing it on a vertical board, it's bloody near enough impossible. Again, I don't need to draw the gaps in. Well, I can if you like. We're going to have a skirt in there. That's going to be 20-ish. But again, I leave about, well, on this one, it's a little bit different. That's a good point on this one, because say we've got a chimney breast here. Remember, on this one, we're not doing flush anymore. We're doing, how can I put this? I can't think of a word. Sticking out of chimney breast. Okay, so the carcass is protruding. Imagine your chimney breast was only 250 deep, you wanted it 400 because you need to get your skybox in there or you need to load it up. Then our cabinet needs to come out a little bit further than the chimney breast, right? And because of that, we're not going to have a flat trim anymore on the side. Remember, I'm showing you one of the techniques. There are other techniques, but this way is one that you could probably start yourself without being an advanced joiner, carpenter, whatever. This way is possibly for you. Right, because we're not going to have a trim on here, let's draw our top view. Top, this is front. Okay, so our carcass now is not flush with the chimney anymore. It's going to be sticking past the chimney breast, and that distance is totally up to you. Let's just imagine again we've got 400 chimney, okay? And we want a carcass of 500. Okay, so let's draw our 6mm in. I'm going to go from there to there. We're allowing 26 because we've got 20 and 6. Okay, let's draw the sides in on this. One side, two sides. Okay, these sides here. Let's go for, again, let's just go for step back. So this one is a little bit different. Let's go revert back to our first one where we had the trims flush with the doors. So what we would simply do is put our doors on here, like so. We'll have a 3mm gap here. We don't need to worry about that because our door is in line with the carcass. We don't need to allow a 3mm gap there. But we are going to have a side panel here that butts up against, remember this is the void now, leftover space. We need to get a cheek, shall I say, or a trim or a panel that goes in here. So we're going to want that panel to go like so. Okay, so if that's the case, then we're going to need a 3mm gap here. Okay, so that's the way that's going to go. But the reason I didn't draw in these dimensions is because we need to allow for a set distance here. Because we're only going to be using a thin panel, we're just going to assume that maximum panel size that we're going to use is 25. Remember, most skirting boards are 20-ish, 25. So this is assuming that once we put the carcass in place, we're going to push it as far over to the skirting as we can, leaving no gap. And with a bit of luck, that skirting and the carcass touch. So this is why on this side, I always say to myself, well, I'm only going to leave myself 20mm on this. But on this side, I'm going to leave myself a little bit more, 30. So 50 in total. So if there is a tapered in skirting board there and it moves over a little bit, I've still got a bit of 10mm slack in between the skirting and the unit. But if not, it will stay where it is and it goes up. If it doesn't fit, all I really need to do is take off that skirting board on site. It's the last case scenario. It never really happens. But if the unit doesn't fit, I can then remove this skirting board off of the chimney breast and gain some more space. So this is why I leave about 20-ish mil here. So my 25mm panel can go in that space and very slightly overlap the wall to cover the gap. But I'm showing you here, it's flush with the bottom of the doors again. It's up to you on this one. Whether you want that side panel to run all the way down, it's absolutely fine. So this panel would run down to the floor and this panel would run up to the bottom of the carcass. It's totally up to you. I would suggest, well, the way I like doing it is this always runs down to the floor and this one sort of is in line with the carcass at the bottom, like so, you know. And then the skirting board, say this panel here runs all the way down to the floor. The skirting board will then butt up against that panel all the way up to the skirting board on this side. And that's the way I like to do trims. The only difference is, what do you want to do with this trim? Now remember, we were talking about the flush side when we first started the video. I showed you that this trim could be on the front. And again, if you want that, this is the next stage. You can just get rid of this detail like that. And you can then have a trim that is flush again, like I showed you before, and then you'll have your 3mm gap there, which means then you're going to have to allow 3mm in between. So this trim I make is going to be a minimum of 23, and 23 works well, so you can plane down some ply, or you can get some birch ply being 23mm, or you can use a piece of 25mm MDF. If you use 25, remember we've got a door of 18 and a 3mm gap, 4mm gap, so that's going to be 22mm. Means there's going to be a slight step there if you use 25mm. And you could bring the doors out a little bit more, but that's just cheating in a way. So try and go for a 22, 23mm trim. And again, when it comes to a top for your cabinet, obviously it'll be flush, it will be up against your wall there. But what you're going to want to do is allow probably about 20mm overhang, like so. So that, because your trim there, we're overhanging the corner of the chimney by about 5mm. This is the reason why we're using 25mm thick to sort of cover the void. We then need to sort of cover that and have a nice overlap with our top or our ledge. So again, you need to take into account a 5mm overhang from your front of your door to the front of your ledge or your top. And again, I allow 20mm from the chimney breast in. So for example, if this was a 1 metre, I'd say this ledge is going to be 1m20 m. But we obviously make it big because we're going to have to scribe this edge. This would be a square cut pre-painted panel, this corner here. And I'd be working back from that when it comes to scribing. So the top, we're looking at the top view. Our top view is going to be sort of like that. Yeah, so we're notching around this corner as such into the space, but leaving our 20mm overhang, give or take 20. Yeah, anything else to note? We talked about carcasses being flush. If they're flush, you can do both ways. You can have the side trims flush with your doors or flush with your carcass. Either way, depends how much work you want to give yourself. If you need, for that method, you could just use standard full overlay hinges that you buy from anywhere. If you're going for the trims where they're sitting on the front like this, again, these doors are inset. So you're going to need door hinges that have got the big dog leg in it, the big kick, the biggest one. So you're going to have to work out there. They're a little bit trickier to hang and get your holes right. Yeah, so you can go for your two methods here, flush trims with the carcass or flush trims with the door. Up to you. But on this one here, again, the left-hand side where it butts up against your wall, your trim could either be flush with your door or flush with your carcass again, but this one, you're going to need a side panel. So what I can do now is run you through, I'm just going to show you a few drawings on a few pictures on my laptop, just to go over what I've just said on here, and hopefully that will just reinforce what you have in your mind, and hopefully you remember all of this sort of stuff. So, all right, let's look at some pictures and show you. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got some albums up here, and this one is showing you a trim. On the right hand side, can you see the mouse? This side panel is 25mm thick, and it's that thick to get over the corner of the chimney. You can see the ledge, how it wraps around by 20mm, the 20mm overhang, but I've still got a little bit of an overhang from the ledge to the trim, right? This cheek, shall I say, or panel, this side panel, I've made it so it runs all the way down to the floor. And on the left-hand side, I've done a flush trim. So these would be inset hinges. This would be an inset hinge. And this one probably a full overlay. But you can see my trim here, it stops in line with the door. And the skirting would be flush with the carcass. But runs from the inside of the panel to the skirting board. So that's the best way, that's the most elaborate way, and as you can see, it's a nice contemporary lower alcove unit, looks really nice. Again, this one is flush trim with a door and flush panel with the door. There's a chimney on this side and a wall on this side, a wall and chimney. And again, this panel I've done all the way down to the floor. Just remember we're using 25mm thick panels here to give us the best possible chance to cover up the void between the carcass and the chimney. Right, what else have we got? Right, again, this is another example. You can see the skirting, the way the skirting butts up to the inside of the panel. So the panel runs all the way down to the floor again. Sometimes I'll make the panel in line with the door and then return the skirting back. I've done that a few times. But again, these two are in line with the door. And this time I've made the actual ledge flush with the doors and all the trims flush with the ledge as well. So everything is flush completely, which is quite a cool way. It looks quite neat. This one is a bit different. The customer wanted me to stop it in line with the skirting board here. But the panel is still 25mm to cover the gap, but it just stops a bit short. You can see the skirting runs in line and butts up against the original skirting. But on the left side, we've stepped that back on this particular trim. So that trim would be flush with the carcass. The skirting would also be flush with the carcass. Another one, flush, but this one is a little bit different. Can you see? So at the bottom, we've stopped this side panel in line with the doors. You know, it depends how you feel, to be honest. I prefer the cheek or the panel running all the way down to the floor. Totally up to you. But I always ask the customer what they feel and they give me input. This is a different one. I thought I'd throw it in there. For a wardrobe, remember, if it's sticking out of sort of like a space where it's effectively like a lower alcove unit, it's going within a recess, you're going to need to do the panel trick where exactly the same effect as what we've just done. I've just showed you where the carcass sticks out and you're going to need to do panels either side and allow your 3mm gap in between the panel and your door, both sides. This one was a bit different. We had to make the skirting up to match the existing skirting and the carcass was a lot higher, etc., etc. So this one's a little bit different, a little bit mix and match this one. Angled, we got a weird trim here, we got a trim, a skirting detail that runs flush with the carcass, and again a step back carcass there. Again, that was mostly to do with the radiator, I think, back when we did that. Can't remember every single one I've done, but let me show you. Yeah, I quite like that one. I quite like that effect. That's a nice effect. Flat doors, that's my style. I quite like that style, flat doors. Yeah. So I hope that helped, guys. All these drawings and sketches have sort of helped you figure out what you're going to be doing, or at least give you a little bit of knowledge. Not exactly showing you how to make them as such, but showing you gaps, what to leave and what not to leave, heights, everything like that you're going to need to know. Remember, if you liked and enjoyed the video and you found it useful, hit the like button, be amazing. Please, please, please hit that like button. Also, if you're liking my content, please subscribe. That'd be amazing too. The more subscribers, the better, and any more support that we can get would be absolutely brilliant. We're at 22,800 subscribers, which is amazing. I want to say thank you to everyone that subscribed already, all the support, all the messages I get. Remember, we're on Instagram also, so check us out there. Always doing stories. You can see a lot more of the workshop on Instagram. Every day I'm doing like 10 minutes worth of stories, especially with my ultimate workbench build, where you'll see me build a giant workbench for my workshop. But apart from that, guys, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments bar. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Take it easy, guys. Have a nice one. Ciao for now.